Welcome back. It's a new year, which means new videos are on the way, but we're going to start off with one of the most requested videos, which is chocolate tempering. Yes, I am finally giving you this video. So many of you asked me, what is this chocolate tempering that you're talking about? How do you do it? So I thought I'd give you this tutorial and make it as simple as possible. So just to start off explaining a bit about tempering chocolate, it's a technique where you basically melt the chocolate, adjust the temperatures and set it, and when it's set, it's nice and shiny and hard. And you may have heard people talk about that snap or that it doesn't melt in your hands. So when you go to those famous chocolatiers and you see all those delicious chocolates laid in a row and they're all shiny, that's made from tempered chocolate. Now, on the other hand, I don't know if you've ever melted chocolate before and then let it set, and then there are like pockets of like, it looks like mold, it's not, but it's basically the fat from the cocoa has come to the surface, and that's because the chocolate isn't tempered. So if you want shiny, nice chocolate, you have to temper it. Also, what you should know is that you can only temper couverture chocolate. So I use Caliber, it's a Belgian chocolate, and actually on the side of the packet, which I don't have now because I throw the packets away and empty them into a Tupperware, they actually have a chart of the temperatures that you need to reach. So that's really helpful. So there's couverture chocolate and compound chocolate. Compound chocolate is mixed with vegetable oils and other ingredients, and you can't temper it. That's what like candy chocolate is made out of. You want couverture, and apparently it's got like a legal requirement of cocoa or cocoa butter in. And a quick science behind tempering, again, as simply as possible. Imagine when you melt chocolate and my fingertips are the particles of chocolate and they're literally like floating around like this. When you reduce the temperature, they start to slow down and kind of come together, and then you heat the chocolate slightly back up and then they form a line, and that line in the structure of the chocolate is what makes it nice and shiny. So there is a very brief introduction into chocolate tempering, and I'm going to share with you my favourite method of doing this. So like I said, when it comes to tempering chocolate, all you're doing is melting chocolate, bringing it down to a temperature and then bringing it back up. And some people bring it down in certain ways. Some people they only melt 2/3 of the chocolate and then they put in 1/3 and melt that into it. To be honest, it never works with me. Another way is to do it over a bowl of ice, and that's how you cool the chocolate down, but you run a risk of cooling it down too quickly. So I like the tabling method, which is this. Now I know you're looking at this and going, I don't have a piece of marble. What do I do? You can do it on any surface. I wouldn't do it on wood because the chocolate gets stuck, but you're basically cooling it down, and marble is naturally cold. Before I do anything, I'm going to make sure this marble is clean, and so I'm just going to wipe some vodka over it, just to get rid of all of these either grease stains, or it may even be leftover chocolate from my last tempering. So the vodka actually evaporates quite quickly, so it's a pretty good cleaning method, and obviously kills all bacteria as well. Okay, so I've got my marble. I've also got a couple of wallpaper scrapers. Again, get these online, as everything, and they're going to help me spread out the chocolate and keep things nice and tidy. I've also got a palette knife because I sometimes use that, and one of these, which is a thermometer, but it's an infrared thermometer. I've done this before where I've done it with the probe thermometers where you stick the stick in and measure the temperature, but it's really messy. So I advise getting one of these. I'll actually put my Amazon link below, and that will take you to my storefront where all my baking products are, so they're all in one place, and you should find one of these. Quite cheap, and if you're into baking and want to try some chocolate out, it's worth investing in one of these. So I have here a bowl of chocolate. Note I'm using a tea towel on top of the marble. The marble should never get warm, and also there's sometimes water on the bowl, and chocolate and water are not friends, so you have to be careful with that. I've been melting this. Now this is Caliber's 54% chocolate, and I've just melted it so it's not too hot. You never want to overheat chocolate. So I got it to about 55 degrees. It's actually 60 degrees, so it's a little warmer than I wanted it to, but as long as it's not over like 70, then that's absolutely fine. Also, when it comes to tempering chocolates, you want to do quite a large amount because otherwise the temperature changes too quickly. This isn't actually that much. This is probably like 400 grams. At school I used to do a kilo. That was fun when it went wrong. Okay, so I'm just going to even out the heat and make sure that all the chocolate is melted in. And also, as I'm stirring it, it's cooling down. So it's already 57, it started at 63. So what I'm going to do is prepare my marble, just make sure it's not wet. And I'm going to pour most of the chocolate. Now, this method, it's always good to leave some behind because if it cools down that bit too much, you have the slightly warmer bit of chocolate in here. So literally like a couple of tablespoons left, not even. And now I'm going to start cooling it down. So first I'm going to check the temperature. So what I'm doing is pressing this button, putting it on top, and it's already gone down to 52. So it's nearly 10 degrees less than how it started off. That's how quickly it cools down. And I'm going to use the wallpaper scraper and just spread it out on the marble. This is one of the most therapeutic things you can do in baking and patisserie. I think there are just videos on the internet just looking at this. And once I've spread it out a bit, I'm going to scoop it back up into a pile using my other scraper. So you can see it can get quite messy. So I'm cooling this down to about 27 degrees. Different percentages of chocolate work differently. White chocolate, you need to cool it down to about 26. Dark, you could probably make it to 28. This has already gone to 33 degrees. It is quite cold in London today, so it's going to cool down a bit quicker than usual. When I was doing this at school, my chefs always said, you're looking for a Nutella stage. Now, I know Nutella can be at different stages, but it's kind of that thickness you're looking for. So I'm going to test it again. 31. So every time I spread it out, it's cooling down. So as it gets closer to 27, I'm going to keep checking it. I've got the heat back on for when I need to heat this back up to 31, 32. You can see how much thicker the chocolate's getting. It's a good sign. Okay, 27, perfect. So I'm going to put it back into the bowl. This is always the fun bit. Trying not to get it all over the surface. Whoops, may have done that already. And back on the heat. But only for a bit because you only want it to go up a couple of temperatures. So I've literally touched it on the heat, giving it a stir, and I'm going to measure it again. And now I'm going to bring it up to 31. Have to work quickly, so otherwise you're at risk of messing it up. So actually, I've left some chocolate on the tray because I felt it was a little too hard. And I think if I was struggling to put that in, it may have affected the larger amount. So I'd rather just leave that there and I can get it later. So I can already see it's lovely and glossy. So I'm hoping it's in temper because I've done what I should have done. Right, so it's at 32. Now, firstly, I'm just going to go back to this chocolate. The fact that it's set is a good sign. I'll never throw chocolate away. You can always remelt it, even if it's not in temper. you can always take it back to the beginning. But the fact that it's set like this is usually a good sign. So I'm just going to clean this off. We don't actually need the marble anymore, so I can put that to the side. But I do want to test that this is in temper. So I'm going to get a palette knife, dip my palette knife in, and what you're looking for is it to set or cloud over within a couple of minutes. So I'm just going to wait a couple of minutes to see if it sets. So it's only been a couple of minutes and it has set over, so I can touch it and it's not coming onto my fingers, which is a really good sign. So now I'm going to show you how to make a few chocolate decorations using the tempered chocolate. I'm speaking fast because I need to work fast, because to keep the chocolate in temper is a mission in itself. So I'm going to have to keep going back onto the heat, taking it off just to keep it within 30 to 32 degrees. So I'm going to keep stirring and keep checking as I'm talking. So it's actually already gone to 30, so I'm just going to put it back on, give it a little stir, and take it off again. So the first decoration is one of those chocolate sails or waves that you may have seen all over social media. My one is slightly neater, so you can either spread it onto baking paper or a seal pat mat and shape it, but I actually use a sheet of acetate and I spread the chocolate thinly onto it. So only like a couple of spoonfuls of chocolate. And actually, I just got some water, so I'm going to make sure that that is off. Don't want the water mixing in. I'm going to spread the chocolate evenly, nice and thin, into a rectangle. I can actually feel the chocolate thickening already. So like I said, it is cold in here, so it's going to set a lot quicker, which is kind of good if you're in a rush, but when you're showing a tutorial, it's not always the best thing. Right, that should be fine. And now I'm going to pinch the middle, then again one more time here, pinch it together at the bottom, and the same on the other side. Oops. Can be a little fiddly. I've already got my fingers covered in chocolate. Once you have the shape, I'm going to use a clamp to hold it all together, like that, and I'm going to leave it to the side to set. And this is a really nice trick if you're decorating small desserts for a dinner party or something. It's similar to the first one. I'm going to get a little bit of chocolate, but this time onto a longer piece of acetate and spread it like this. Once again, nice and thin. And then I'm going to run a fork down the chocolate. And you'll see why we do that in a second. And then I'm going to curl it. And then clamp it where I can. It can go over itself. So it's actually not as neat as I wanted it, but I need to work quickly because it's setting really hard. And again, I'm just going to leave that to the side. Check the chocolate once again. Oh, it's getting cold, so I'm just going to put it back on the heat. Now, it's impossible to work with chocolate without getting chocolatey, but that's the fun of it. So I've got a silicone mold here with half spheres, and I'm going to fill the spheres up with some chocolate and spread it up the side. You can get chocolate molds. They're a lot easier. I need to invest in some. They're a lot sturdier than the silicone. You can see these are kind of moving around a bit. So I'm just making sure that all the sides are covered in chocolate. And now I'm going to flip this upside down to remove all the excess. And you'll see, hopefully, that some of the chocolate will start to come out. Again, with the chocolate molds, because they're quite hard, you can like give them a good smack on the side and all the chocolate comes out. And this is making sure that the shells of whatever shape you're doing is nice and thin. Okay, not dripping so much because it's really thick, but a bit did come out. And I'm just going to clean off the edges. Actually, I'm going to use the bigger palette knife. Scraping that off. And again, leaving these to set. So tempered chocolate shouldn't go in the fridge. It should be left to set at room temperature, preferably colder room temperature, but not too cold. It's a game you have to keep playing. So I'm going to leave these here. I'm going to clean off the chocolate. What I'm going to do actually is, because some of the chocolate has set around the bowl, I'm going to put this onto heat. And it's going to melt it all together again. It will go out of temper, but I finished with the shaping, and then pour it onto a baking tray and leave it to set, and we'll remelt it whenever I'm ready. Okay, so it's been about 15-20 minutes. I'm going to leave the swirls and the fan just for a few minutes longer, but the smaller balls, because they're smaller, have set really quickly, so I'll show you those ones first. I've got a pan which I've been heating just dry, so the bottom of the pan is nice and hot. I'm just going to check the rest of it isn't. And to make spheres, all you need to do is pop these out. See how lovely and shiny they are. And then place the two onto the surface very briefly and close them together. And then I actually put them back into the mold for them to set. So this is a really cute decoration to add onto cakes. You can fill them with salted caramel or ganache. So just very briefly. It also just neatens up the edges. It's actually more wise to do this with gloves because your fingertips show. Just see there's a bit of excess chocolate on that one. And I'm just going to wipe away. And then when they're set, I actually like dusting them in gold, like I do with most things. So a cute little decoration. Now let's see if the others have been set enough. Let's have a look at the swirl. So remember when I dragged the fork through? What I was doing, I was actually separating the chocolate into several strands of chocolate. So hopefully they create maybe about 10-15 individual strands. The acetate comes off. And hopefully some of them hold their shape. I think it worked. I think. Oops, okay, I broke one. You kind of get the idea. I haven't done plated desserts for a long time. I think here's a nice one. There we go. So I've done these before when I wanted to show off to my friends. I made like individual ramekins of chocolate mousse and just put one of those on top. A little dollop of fresh cream. Delicious. And they were like, wow! Ah, here's a really beautiful one. They're snapping, which I don't want to happen, but you can actually hear that they're snapping rather than bending, so it's very quiet. Maybe I'll do it next to my microphone. I don't think you can hear it. But there's a little snap there, which means that the chocolate is tempered, and you can also tell because of how shiny it is, and I'm handling it without it melting in my hands. If it wasn't tempered, it wouldn't be shiny, it would melt, and it wouldn't snap, it would bend. So that snaps. So I might just add this to the chocolate pile. So I'm just leaving this chocolate to set, like I said. It may take more than a few hours even because it's not in temper. Now let's demold the chocolate fan. This has to be done very carefully. Ooh, just saved it from a crack. It hasn't actually set 100%. I probably should have left it, but it is in temper. I can tell by the lovely shine, but it could have probably done a few more minutes, if anything, maybe 10-15 more minutes. But again, not melting in my hand, and that will look beautiful on top of a cake, maybe with a couple of chocolate spheres around it, and if you're feeling adventurous, then a chocolate swirl. So there you go, a little introduction to chocolate tempering. So for all of those who asked for this video, I hope you found it helpful and informative. Just remember that different chocolates have different temperatures, but they usually say on the side of the packets, they have a little graph. As always, I try to get to all of your messages, so if you do have one, contact me on Instagram at George's Cakes. And I hope you get to do some amazing things with chocolate thanks to this video. So I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe and like it, of course, and I will see you very soon.